Let's start at level 1, the simplest, most fundamental fact. Existence exists. No matter what we believe, no matter what we argue, the undeniable reality is that something exists rather than nothing. This is the foundation of all thought. If nothing existed, we wouldn't be here to even ask the question. But why does something exist at all? Why is there reality rather than pure nothingness? The very fact that existence is here and not nothing suggests that existence itself requires an explanation. And if it requires an explanation, that points us toward a necessary being, something that must exist and cannot not exist. This sets the stage for deeper levels of logical reasoning for God's existence. Now, let's move to level 2, cause and effect, one of the most fundamental principles we observe in reality. Everything we see around us has a cause. A tree grows because a seed was planted. A building stands because engineers designed it. A fire burns because there's fuel and oxygen. Nothing we observe simply pops into existence without a cause. This principle, known as causality, is the foundation of science itself. We assume that every event, every change, has a reason behind it. But if everything has a cause, what about the universe itself? Was it caused by something? If the universe had a beginning, and modern physics strongly suggests that it did, then it must have had a cause. And that cause cannot itself be part of the universe. This is where logic starts pointing us towards something beyond space, time, and matter, something capable of creating everything. At level 2, we've established that the universe must have a cause. But what is that cause? We'll explore that as we level up. Now, let's move to level 3, the undeniable order in nature. Look around. Our universe isn't random chaos. Instead, it operates by strict, predictable laws. Gravity, electromagnetism, thermodynamics, and more. Every scientific discovery confirms that the universe functions according to consistent mathematical principles. But why? If we stumbled upon a fully functional, self-regulating machine, like a supercomputer, we wouldn't assume it assembled itself by accident. We'd recognize that intelligent design was behind it. The universe is infinitely more complex than any machine we've ever built, yet it functions with precision. Even the tiniest particles, atoms and quarks, obey strict laws. The speed of light, the strength of gravity, and the structure of DNA all follow precise rules. But laws don't write themselves. Order doesn't emerge from nowhere. If laws govern the universe, wouldn't it make sense that there was a lawgiver? At level 3, we're beginning to see that the universe isn't just here. It's structured, governed, and rational. And that suggests something, or someone, designed it that way. Let's level up and take this further. Welcome to level 4, one of the most mind-blowing discoveries of modern science, the fine-tuning of the universe. Imagine throwing a dart at a board the size of the entire universe, and hitting a target the size of a single atom. That's the level of precision we're talking about when it comes to the fundamental forces that allow life to exist. Take gravity. If its strength were altered by just 1 part in 10 to the power of 60, the universe would either collapse into a black hole or expand so fast that galaxies could never form. The same goes for the nuclear forces holding atoms together and the ratio of matter to antimatter. Every fundamental constant in physics is set just right, like an impossibly well-calibrated machine. Scientists call this the fine-tuning problem because there's no known reason why these numbers should be what they are. If they were different, life couldn't exist. No stars, no planets, no us. So, what explains this? Either it's all just an accident, we got incredibly lucky, against impossible odds. There are infinite universes with different laws, and we just happen to be in one that works, which itself raises deeper questions. The universe was designed this way, fine-tuned by an intelligent mind. At level 4, we see that the universe isn't just structured, it's fine-tuned for life. That doesn't prove a creator yet, but it's one more massive clue. Let's level up. Now we reach level 5, where we encounter something strange and fascinating. The universe speaks in the language of mathematics. Everything in reality, from the orbits of planets to the motion of electrons, follows precise mathematical equations. Einstein's equations predicted black holes before we even discovered them. Newton's laws describe how everything moves, from falling apples to galaxies colliding. Even the weirdness of quantum mechanics follows strict mathematical rules. But here's the question. Why should math, an abstract system invented by human minds, perfectly describe the physical world? If the universe were just chaotic, random matter, there would be no reason for math to work so well. But instead, it fits like a glove, almost as if the universe was built upon a logical, rational foundation. This raises a deep philosophical question. Is mathematics something we just discovered, or is it the fundamental blueprint of reality? If it's a blueprint, then who or what designed it? The fact that math governs reality suggests that mind precedes matter, not the other way around. This aligns with the idea that an ultimate intelligent mind, God, designed the structure of the cosmos. At level 5, we see that the universe isn't just fine-tuned. It's encoded with logic and order, pointing to something beyond itself. Let's level up and go deeper. Now, let's move to level 6, where we leave physics behind for a moment and look at something deeply human: morality. We all recognize that some things are truly right and some things are truly wrong. Not just opinions, not just cultural traditions, but objective moral facts. Torturing an innocent child for fun isn't just socially unacceptable, it's objectively evil. Acts of kindness and love aren't just biological survival tactics. They are truly good. But here's the problem. If morality is truly objective, where does it come from? If the universe is just atoms and energy with no higher meaning, then morality is just a human illusion, an evolutionary trick to help us survive. But that explanation doesn't sit right, does it? We don't feel like morality is an illusion. We feel like it's real. So, we have two options. 1. Morality is just a human invention, and nothing is truly right or wrong. 2. Moral truths exist beyond us, which means they require a moral foundation that transcends humanity. And if moral laws exist beyond human opinion, they must come from something greater than humans. Just like physical laws require a lawgiver, moral laws require a moral lawgiver. This points directly to the existence of a perfectly good, transcendent being, God. At level 6, we've now moved beyond just science and physics. We're dealing with the very foundation of right and wrong, and it's leading us to something beyond ourselves. Let's level up. Now, let's move to level 7, where we look at one of the most astonishing discoveries in biology: the information encoded in DNA. DNA is essentially a biological code, an instruction manual for life, written in a 4-letter chemical alphabet. Inside each cell of your body, there are over 3 billion letters of genetic code, instructing your body how to grow, function, and survive. But here's the mystery. Where does this information come from? Think about it. Every single code we've ever encountered, whether it's computer software, books, or Morse code, comes from an intelligent source. You wouldn't look at a novel and assume the ink randomly splattered onto the pages. You wouldn't see a complex computer program and assume it wrote itself. Yet, DNA contains more complex, organized information than any software we've ever created. So, what makes more sense? 1. Random chemical reactions accidentally wrote the code of life. 2. An intelligent mind encoded the information into DNA. Science has never observed information writing itself without an intelligent source. And if information in DNA requires a programmer, that suggests a mind behind life itself. At level 7, we see that life isn't just made of chemicals. It's built on an intelligent language, pointing toward an intelligent author. Let's level up. Now, let's move to level 8, where we take an even deeper look at something strange: the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. Mathematics isn't just a human invention. It perfectly describes the universe, often in ways we don't expect. Equations written on paper predict the behavior of galaxies, black holes, and quantum particles before we even observe them. Einstein's equations predicted gravitational waves a century before we had the technology to detect them. The Higgs boson was predicted mathematically decades before we actually found it. The famous physicist Eugene Wigner called this unreasonable effectiveness because there's no obvious reason why abstract symbols written in a notebook should perfectly match the laws of reality. It's as if the universe was designed to be understood. But this raises a huge question. Why does the universe obey math at all? If the universe were just a chaotic accident, why would it follow precise, elegant equations instead of random chaos? If math is just a human invention, why does it work so well for things we've never seen? This suggests that mathematics isn't something we made up, it's something we discovered. And if math exists beyond us, beyond time, and beyond the physical world, that points to a rational mind behind the cosmos, a divine mathematician. At level 8, we've now seen that the universe isn't just fine-tuned and structured, it's intelligible, as if it were designed to be understood. Let's level up. Now, let's move to level 9, where we dive into one of the most fundamental principles in philosophy and logic, the principle of sufficient reason. This principle, famously developed by the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, states that everything that exists must have a reason or an explanation for why it is the way it is. Nothing just exists without cause or reason. Think about it. If you walked through a forest and saw a perfectly round glowing sphere, you would immediately ask, why is this here? What caused it? You wouldn't assume it just exists for no reason. Now, apply that same logic to the entire universe. Why does the universe exist rather than nothing? We have two possible answers. 1. The universe has no reason. It's just a brute fact. 2. The universe has an explanation beyond itself. But here's the problem. If we say the universe just exists with no explanation, we're violating the very principle that allows us to understand everything else in reality. Science, logic, and reason are all based on the idea that things have explanations. Why should we abandon that principle when it comes to the biggest question of all? The only way to satisfy the principle of sufficient reason is to acknowledge that the universe has an explanation beyond itself, a necessary being that does not require an explanation because it is eternal, self-existent, and the foundation of reality. At level 9, we're beginning to see that the universe itself is pointing us toward a necessary, self-existent cause, something beyond time, space, and matter. Let's level up. Now we've reached level 10, where we explore a concept in biology that challenges the idea that life formed through random chance alone, irreducible complexity. Some biological systems are so complex that they can't function unless all their parts are present at the same time. One example is the bacterial flagellum, a tiny microscopic motor that bacteria use to swim. This motor is made up of dozens of precisely arranged proteins, forming a rotating mechanism similar to an outboard engine. But here's the catch. If just one part is missing, the entire system stops working. This creates a major problem for evolutionary theory based on gradual changes. Natural selection can only select features that provide a survival advantage. But if a structure doesn't work at all until all its parts are present, how could it have evolved one step at a time? This isn't just about bacteria, the human eye, the blood clotting system, and even the molecular machines inside our cells all show signs of irreducible complexity. So, what makes more sense? 1. These systems slowly assembled themselves piece by piece over millions of years, despite not working until fully complete. 2. These systems were designed as fully functional units from the beginning. At level 10, we're seeing that life doesn't just appear designed. It contains systems so complex that they defy step-by-step assembly through chance alone. And when we see intricate, purposeful design in nature, we have to ask, who or what designed it? Let's level up. Now we reach level 11, where we dive into one of the most famous and logically airtight arguments for God's existence, the Kalam cosmological argument. This argument is simple yet powerful, and goes like this. 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2. The universe began to exist. 3. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Let's break this down. The first premise, whatever begins to exist has a cause, is something we see every day. A house doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It has builders. A painting has a painter. Even the birth of a star has a process behind it. Things don't just pop into existence uncaused. The second premise, the universe began to exist, is backed by science. The Big Bang Theory, along with discoveries in physics, shows that the universe had a beginning. Space, time, and matter all came into existence at a finite point in the past. That means the universe is not eternal. It had a starting point. So, if everything that begins to exist has a cause, and the universe began to exist, then the universe must have a cause. But here's the kicker. This cause cannot be part of the universe itself. It must be outside of space, time, and matter. That means the cause of the universe must be timeless, spaceless, immaterial, powerful, and personal, because only something personal can choose to create. And what does that sound like? A creator. At level 11, we have now logically demonstrated that the universe requires a cause that exists beyond it, pointing directly to God. Let's level up. Now, at level 12, we dive deeper into the nature of existence itself with one of the most powerful philosophical proofs for God, Leibniz's contingency argument. This argument asks a simple but profound question. Why is there something rather than nothing? Everything around us, trees, planets, even entire galaxies, exists, but doesn't have to exist. They are contingent. They rely on something else for their existence. A tree came from a seed. A seed came from another tree. A planet formed from cosmic dust. Everything we see depends on something before it. But here's the problem. If everything is contingent, meaning it relies on something else, then we end up in an infinite chain of explanations. And that doesn't actually explain why there's anything at all. So, we are left with two possibilities. One, the universe is just a brute fact. It exists for no reason. Two, there is a necessary being that explains why anything exists at all. A necessary being is something that must exist. It doesn't depend on anything else. It is the foundation of all reality. And this necessary being must be uncaused, because if it needed a cause, it wouldn't be necessary. Eternal, because it doesn't rely on anything else to exist. All-powerful, because it brought everything else into existence. Immaterial, because it exists beyond physical space and time. And what kind of being fits this description? God. At level 12, we've now shown that the universe cannot explain its own existence. It must ultimately rest on a necessary being, which points directly to a creator. Let's level up. Now, at level 13, we focus on something that seems obvious yet incredibly profound, the design of the universe. This is called the teleological argument, from the Greek word telos, meaning purpose or goal. The argument is simple. If something appears designed, it's reasonable to infer a designer. The universe exhibits extreme complexity and order. Therefore, it is reasonable to infer a designer of the universe. Think about a watch. If you found a watch in the sand, you wouldn't assume the gears, hands, and numbers randomly fell into place by chance. The precision of its parts and their function imply an intelligent watchmaker. Now, look at the universe. The Earth is perfectly positioned for life. Too close to the sun, and we burn. Too far, and we freeze. The laws of physics are set at values so precise that even tiny changes would make life impossible. The human body is a masterpiece of biological engineering. Our DNA is a code more advanced than any software. The deeper we study science, the more we see not randomness, but order. And order, especially highly functional order, points to a mind behind it. Some argue that this is all just coincidence, but here's the problem. The more complex something is, the less likely it is to be the result of chance. The universe is not just ordered, it is fine-tuned for life. At level 13, we see that the cosmos isn't just here. It's structured, purposeful, and filled with evidence of intentional design. And where there is design, there must be a designer. Let's level up. Now, at level 14, we take a deeper look at one of the most powerful arguments for God's existence, the moral argument. This argument isn't about whether people believe in morality, but rather whether morality itself exists subjectively, independent of human opinion. It goes like this. If objective moral values exist, then God must exist. Objective moral values do exist. Therefore, God exists. Let's break this down. We all recognize certain actions as truly right or wrong. Torturing children for fun, genocide, and slavery aren't just things we don't like. They are actually objectively evil, regardless of personal opinion or cultural norms. Likewise, love, kindness, and justice aren't just social preferences, they are objectively good. But here's the problem. If there is no God, then there is no foundation for objective moral values. Without a transcendent moral lawgiver, morality is just a human invention, a set of rules we made up to survive. That would mean there is no real difference between charity and cruelty, just different choices people make. But that's not how we experience morality. We don't just feel preference for good over evil. We recognize that good and evil are real, and if morality is real, it must come from beyond us, from an unchanging, perfectly good source. At level 14, we've now seen that morality is not just a social construct. It's an objective reality that requires a transcendent moral lawgiver, and that lawgiver is exactly what we call God. Let's level up. Now, at level 15, we take a step into the world of logic and metaphysics with an advanced concept, the necessity of an unconditioned reality. Let's start with a basic idea. Contingent things exist. That means things that could have failed to exist, like people, planets, and even entire galaxies. Every contingent thing depends on something else for its existence. But here's the problem. If everything depended on something else, we would have an infinite regress of explanations, meaning we would never get to a fundamental reason why anything exists at all. That's logically impossible because an infinite chain of contingent things still doesn't explain why there's something rather than nothing. So, what's the solution? There must be at least one thing that exists necessarily, something that doesn't depend on anything else. This is called an unconditioned reality, and it must exist by necessity. It cannot fail to exist. Be uncaused. It doesn't depend on anything else. Be infinite or beyond time, because it must be the foundation of all reality. And when we follow the logic, the only kind of being that fits this description is an eternal, necessary, and self-existent foundation of reality, or what we call God. At level 15, we've now demonstrated that something must exist necessarily, and that leads us directly toward the existence of a necessary being, one that is uncaused, beyond time, and the ultimate explanation for why anything exists at all. Let's level up. At level 16, we step into the world of formal logic with an argument developed by one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, Kurt Gödel's ontological argument. Gödel's proof is based on modal logic, a system that deals with possibility and necessity. While the full proof is highly technical, the core idea can be simplified like this. God is defined as a maximally great being, one that has all positive properties to the highest degree, including necessary existence. If God is even possible, then he must exist in at least one possible world. But if God exists in one possible world and is a necessarily existing being, then he must exist in all possible worlds, including our own. Therefore, God must exist. The key idea here is necessary existence. Some things, like planets or stars, exist, but could have failed to exist. But a necessary being isn't like that. It exists in every possible reality. If the concept of a maximally great being is logically possible, and it is since it has no contradictions, then it must exist in reality. This isn't just philosophy. It's a rigorous logical proof developed by one of the greatest minds in mathematics. At level 16, we've now seen that pure logic leads us to the conclusion that God's existence is not just possible, it is necessary. Let's level up. Now, at level 17, we dive into one of the greatest mysteries in philosophy and science, consciousness. We all experience thoughts, emotions, and self-awareness. But here's the problem. How does consciousness arise from non-conscious matter? Science can explain how neurons fire, but it cannot explain why we experience things, why we feel love, why we have inner thoughts, or why we are aware of ourselves as individuals. This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. There are two major ways to look at consciousness. 1. Materialism. Consciousness is just an illusion created by the brain, nothing more than chemicals and electrical signals. 2. Theism. Consciousness is not reducible to matter alone. It comes from something beyond the physical world. But materialism faces a major issue. No purely physical explanation can account for subjective experience. Your thoughts, dreams, and self-awareness aren't just molecules moving in your brain. They are non-physical experiences. This suggests that consciousness is fundamental to reality. And if that's true, it points to the existence of a higher, conscious source of reality. In other words, our own consciousness may be a reflection of a greater, divine mind. At level 17, we see that the very fact that we are conscious points beyond physical matter and toward a conscious creator. Let's level up. At level 18, we explore a concept that ties science and philosophy together, the anthropic principle. This principle states that the universe appears to be fine-tuned for human life, and if it were even slightly different, we wouldn't be here to observe it. Think about it. If the strength of gravity were altered by even a fraction of a percent, galaxies, stars, and planets wouldn't form. If the nuclear forces inside atoms were slightly different, matter as we know it wouldn't exist. If Earth's position in the solar system were even slightly off, life would be impossible. It's almost as if the universe was specifically set up for us to exist. But why? There are two explanations. One, it's all just an accident. We just happened to win the ultimate cosmic lottery. Two, the universe was designed for life, fine-tuned by an intelligent creator. Some argue that there might be infinite universes, and we just happen to be in the one that works. But here's the issue. There's no evidence for these other universes. It's a theory created to avoid the conclusion that our universe was designed on purpose. At level 18, we see that the universe isn't just possible for life. It seems specifically tailored for it. And that points to a fine-tuner, a designer, God. Let's level up. Now, at level 19, we explore a mind-bending question. Do abstract things exist beyond the physical world? Consider numbers, logic, and moral truths. You can't touch the number 7, but it exists. The Pythagorean theorem isn't just an opinion. It's a necessary truth that holds in all possible worlds. The same goes for the laws of logic. They aren't made of matter, yet they govern all reasoning. But here's the problem. If the universe were purely material, where do these abstract truths exist? There are two possibilities. One, abstract objects exist independently of any mind, but this means they exist in some mysterious, non-physical realm with no explanation. Two, abstract objects exist in the mind of a necessary being, a rational source that grounds logic, mathematics, and morality. And this second explanation makes sense. Just like human thoughts exist in our minds, universal truths must exist in a greater, eternal mind. This is called divine conceptualism, and it suggests that God is the necessary foundation for all logical and mathematical truths. At level 19, we see that truth, logic, and mathematics don't come from physical matter. They require a mind beyond the material world. And the best explanation for this is a divine intellect that grounds all reality. Let's level up. Now, at level 20, we dive into one of the oldest and most profound arguments for God, the first mover argument. This argument was developed by Aristotle and later refined by St. Thomas Aquinas. And it goes like this. Things in the universe are in motion. Anything in motion must be set in motion by something else. This cannot go on infinitely, or else there would be no first movement. Therefore, there must be a first mover, one that was not moved by anything else. Let's break it down. Look around. Everything is in motion. Planets orbit stars. Waves crash on the shore. Even the atoms in your body are vibrating. But motion doesn't just happen. It must be caused by something else. A rolling ball moves because something pushed it. A tree sways because of the wind. But if everything in motion is caused by something else, we can't have an infinite chain of movers. There has to be a first cause of motion that is itself unmoved. This first mover must exist outside of time because time itself is in motion. Be uncaused because if it were caused, it wouldn't be the first. Be all-powerful because it started all movement. And what kind of being fits this description? A necessary, eternal, and all-powerful creator, God. At level 20, we now see that the very existence of motion in the universe leads us logically to a first mover, one that exists beyond time and space. Let's level up. At level 21, we unlock something fascinating, the nature of information and what it tells us about the universe. Information is everywhere. DNA carries the blueprints of life. Computer code runs our digital world. Language transmits knowledge across generations. But here's the key question. Where does information come from? In every case we've ever studied, Complex, meaningful information always comes from an intelligent source. A book requires an author. A computer program requires a programmer. A message in the sand, help, requires a mind to write it. But here's the mystery. The universe itself is filled with highly ordered, meaningful information. The genetic code in DNA is more complex than any software humans have ever created. The mathematical laws of physics encode precise relationships that govern reality. Even the structure of language and thought follows patterns of logic and order. This means we have two options. 1. All of this information appeared by pure chance, without purpose or intent. 2. Information is the result of intelligence, pointing to a mind behind the universe. The second option fits what we already know. Information comes from intelligence. And if the universe itself carries information, then it suggests the presence of a cosmic source of intelligence, a divine mind that structured reality itself. At level 21, we now see that information is not random. It is intentional, and that intention points to a creator. Let's level up. At level 22, we explore something so fundamental that we rarely stop to think about it: the intelligibility of the universe. Have you ever wondered why we can even understand the universe at all? Science, mathematics, and logic allow us to make sense of reality. Equations describe gravity, energy, and motion with stunning accuracy. The universe isn't just a chaotic mess of particles. It follows rules that our minds can grasp. But here's the big question. Why should the universe be comprehensible? Why does reality conform to laws that humans can describe using mathematics? Why is the human brain capable of uncovering the hidden structure of the cosmos? There are two possibilities. 1. It's just a lucky accident. The universe just happens to follow logical patterns, and we just happen to have the ability to understand them. 2. The universe is intelligible because it was created by an intelligent mind. Just as a book is meant to be read, the universe is structured in a way that allows it to be discovered. If we found a complex code written into nature, we wouldn't assume it was meaningless. We'd assume it was put there by a mind. At level 22, we see that the fact that we can even understand the universe at all suggests that it was designed to be understood by a creator who made both the universe and the minds capable of exploring it. Let's level up. At level 23, we confront one of the biggest questions in philosophy. Why can we trust reason at all? Think about it. Every scientific discovery, every logical argument, every piece of knowledge assumes that our minds are capable of knowing truth. But here's the problem. If our brains are just the product of blind, unguided evolution, why should we trust them? This is called the epistemic argument for theism. And it goes like this. If our reasoning ability is reliable, there must be a foundation for truth beyond just physical processes. Our reasoning ability is reliable. Therefore, truth must be grounded in something beyond mere matter and evolution. Let's break it down. Under naturalism, our thoughts are nothing more than neurons firing in response to survival instincts. But evolution doesn't care about truth. It only cares about survival. A belief could be completely false, yet still help an organism survive. So, why would we assume that our brains evolved to actually understand reality instead of just responding in a way that kept our ancestors alive? If there is no ultimate source of truth, then all our reasoning is just chemical reactions with no deeper meaning. But if truth exists independently of our biology, then our ability to reason must come from something beyond just the physical world, a rational mind that designed the universe with truth in mind. At level 23, we now see that our very ability to think rationally suggests a rational creator, one who designed reality in a way that can be truly known. Let's level up. At level 24, we explore an ancient mystery, the problem of the one and the many. Look around. The universe is filled with many things: galaxies, planets, atoms, people. And yet, somehow, all of these separate things exist within one unified reality. But here's the problem. Why is there unity at all? Why doesn't the universe just consist of an infinite number of disconnected, chaotic fragments? Why does everything, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies, exist within a single ordered system governed by universal laws? Philosophers have struggled with this question for centuries, and there are only two real possibilities. 1. The unity of the universe is an illusion. Everything is just separate, and our minds impose order where there is none. 2. The universe is unified because it comes from a single ultimate source, one that binds all things together. If the second answer is true, then reality itself points toward a being that is both the source of all diversity and the foundation of all unity. In philosophy, this is called the absolute, a necessary being that holds all things together. And what does that sound like? God. At level 24, we now see that the very fact that reality is one, yet filled with many, points to a single ultimate mind that unites all existence. Let's level up. At level 25, we dive into a profound insight from René Descartes, the famous philosopher and mathematician. His argument, the very fact that we have the idea of a perfect being, proves that such a being must exist. Let's break this down. Descartes asked, where does the idea of a perfect being, God, come from? Now, think about it. We are imperfect beings. We make mistakes. We lack knowledge. We are limited in power. So, how could our minds, imperfect and limited, come up with the concept of absolute perfection? Ideas don't appear out of nowhere. Every idea we have comes from somewhere, from experience, from imagination, or from something greater than ourselves. Descartes argued that the idea of a perfect being cannot come from an imperfect mind. If we were the only source of our ideas, we would never even conceive of a perfect God, because we have never experienced perfection. So, there are only two possibilities. 1. We created the idea of God ourselves out of nothing. But that makes no sense. How can imperfection generate the concept of absolute perfection? 2. The idea of a perfect being was placed in us by a perfect being. Descartes concluded that the only explanation for why we even have the concept of God is that God must exist. Just like a signature on a painting reveals the artist, the idea of perfection in our minds reveals its true source, a perfect creator. At level 25, we now see that our very ability to conceive of a perfect God is proof that such a being must exist. Let's level up. At level 26, we explore something fundamental to human existence: relationships. Think about the most meaningful moments in your life: the joy of love, the bond of friendship, the trust between family. These aren't just biological survival tactics, they point to something deeper about who we are. But here's the big question: why do we, as humans, crave relationships? Science can explain the chemistry behind emotions, but it can't explain why love, trust, and connection feel so deeply real, as if they are woven into the fabric of reality itself. Now, let's take it further. If relationships are so central to human experience, what does that tell us about the nature of ultimate reality? There are two possibilities. 1. Reality is ultimately impersonal, just atoms and energy with no deeper meaning behind love or connection. 2. Reality is ultimately personal because the source of existence itself is relational. The second option makes more sense. If we, as personal, relational beings, were created by a purely impersonal force, then love, meaning, and connection would be illusions. But we don't experience them that way. We experience love as real. At level 26, we now see that our deepest human relationships reflect the nature of ultimate reality, one that is not cold and impersonal, but personal and loving. Let's level up. At level 27, we explore one of the most fascinating and controversial topics: miracles. Throughout history, people across different cultures have reported events that defy natural explanation: healings, visions, impossible recoveries, even resurrections. Are they all just myths, or do miracles point to something beyond the natural world? Let's break it down logically. A miracle is an event that goes beyond the laws of nature, something that couldn't happen by random chance or natural processes alone. But if miracles are real, then there must be something beyond nature that causes them, a supernatural force. So, we have two possibilities. 1. Miracles never happen, and every report of them is false or misunderstood. 2. Miracles do happen, which means something beyond the physical world is real. If even one miracle is genuine, just one, then materialism is false. It would prove that reality isn't just atoms and energy, but includes a higher power capable of intervening in the world. And here's the thing. Many miracles have been documented, medically verified, and experienced by thousands of people. Near-death experiences, scientifically inexplicable healings, and even cases like the resurrection of Jesus have evidence that demands serious investigation. At level 27, we now see that if miracles happen, then a supernatural reality must exist. And if a supernatural reality exists, that means God is real. Let's level up. At level 28, we explore something that speaks to us on a level beyond logic: beauty. Think about the most breathtaking moments in life. A sunset, painting the sky in colors no artist could create. A symphony that stirs emotions you can't put into words. The delicate, intricate design of a butterfly's wing. Beauty isn't just useful, it's meaningful. It awakens something deep within us. But here's the question. Why does beauty exist at all? In a purely material world, beauty shouldn't matter. Evolution only cares about survival. There's no reason why humans should be moved by art, music, or the grandeur of the stars. And yet, we don't just experience beauty. We seek it, we create it, we are drawn to it. So, we have two possibilities. 1. Beauty is just a random byproduct of evolution, an illusion with no real meaning. 2. Beauty exists because it reflects something deeper, something beyond the physical world. The second option makes more sense. Beauty points beyond itself. It draws us towards something greater. Many thinkers throughout history have believed that beauty is a signature of God, a glimpse of the divine woven into creation. At level 28, we now see that beauty isn't just an accident. It's a reflection of something higher. And that higher source of beauty? God. Let's level up. At level 29, we explore one of the most fascinating and controversial pieces of evidence for the existence of the soul: near-death experiences. Millions of people across different cultures and religions have reported similar experiences when they were clinically dead or near death. A feeling of leaving the body, seeing their body from above while doctors worked on them, traveling through a tunnel toward a bright light, encounters with deceased loved ones or a divine presence. But here's the real mystery. Some near-death experiences include verifiable details. There are cases where people saw things they physically couldn't have seen while unconscious, like conversations in other rooms, specific medical procedures, or objects hidden from view. And in some cases, blind individuals reported seeing for the first time during their experience. So we have two possibilities. 1. Near-death experiences are just hallucinations, random brain activity in a dying body. 2. Near-death experiences reveal something real, a consciousness that exists beyond the physical body. If near-death experiences are just brain activity, how do we explain the cases where people see and hear things that should have been impossible? And if consciousness can exist outside the body, that suggests we are more than just matter. We have a soul. At level 29, we now see that if near-death experiences are real, then materialism is false, and there is strong evidence for life beyond death. Let's level up. At level 30, we tackle one of the greatest mysteries of human existence: free will. Right now, you're making a choice: to listen, to think, to engage. But here's the question. Are you really free to make choices? Or are your thoughts and actions just the result of brain chemistry and physical laws? If the universe is purely material, just atoms following physical laws, then everything we do is determined by prior causes. In that case, free will doesn't really exist. Our choices would just be illusions, the inevitable result of neurons firing based on physics. But that's not how we experience life. We feel free. We hold people morally responsible for their actions. We punish criminals not because they had no choice, but because we believe they could have chosen differently. So, we have two options. 1. Free will is an illusion. Every thought and action is just physical cause and effect. 2. We actually have free will, which means we are more than just physical matter. If free will is real, that means we are not just machines. We are beings with souls, capable of making real choices. And if we have souls, it makes sense that we were created by a being with free will, a conscious creator who designed us in his image. At level 30, we now see that the very fact that we make choices points to a reality beyond just matter. It points to a God who gave us the ability to choose. Let's level up. At level 31, we explore something that transcends culture, history, and geography: the universality of religious experience. From the dawn of human civilization, people from every culture, on every continent, have had an overwhelming sense that there is something beyond this physical world. Think about it. Ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles, independently developed a belief in a higher power. Throughout history, people have reported mystical encounters, visions, and moments of deep spiritual connection. Even today, millions of people across the world claim to have experienced God, not just as a concept, but as a real, personal presence. But why? If God didn't exist, why would this belief be so deeply ingrained in human nature? Why would people from completely different backgrounds, speaking different languages, across different time periods, all come to the same fundamental conclusion: that there is something greater than ourselves? We have two possibilities. One, religious belief is just an evolutionary accident, a byproduct of survival instincts. Two, religious belief is universal because it reflects something real, something humans have sensed for all of history. The second option makes more sense. If hunger points to the reality of food, if thirst points to the reality of water, then perhaps our deep longing for the divine points to the reality of God. At level 31, we now see that the sheer universality of spiritual experience is more than just coincidence. It points to a deeper truth, one that has been calling out to humanity since the beginning of time. Let's level up. At level 32, we explore a question that shakes the very foundations of existence. Can time itself be infinite? We experience time as a series of moments: yesterday, today, tomorrow. But here's the real question: did time have a beginning, or has it existed forever? If time had no beginning, then the past would stretch back infinitely. But that creates a huge problem, because it's impossible to cross an actual infinite. Imagine a staircase that goes infinitely into the past. If you had to climb that staircase one step at a time, you would never reach the present moment. And yet, here we are. That means time cannot be infinite. It must have started at some point. So, we have two possibilities. One, time created itself out of nothing, an impossibility. Two, time was created by something outside of time itself, something eternal and uncaused. The second option is the only one that makes sense. If time had a beginning, something outside of time must have started it. And what do we call a being that is eternal, uncaused, and beyond time itself? God. At level 32, we now see that time itself cannot be infinite. It had to begin. And that means there must be an eternal cause, existing beyond time, that brought everything into existence. Let's level up. At level 33, we enter the strange world of quantum mechanics, where reality behaves in ways that defy common sense. One of the most mind-bending discoveries in physics is the observer effect, the idea that particles behave differently when they are being observed. In experiments like the double-slit experiment, tiny particles, like electrons, act like waves when unobserved, but the moment they are measured or watched, they behave like solid particles. It's as if reality itself changes when consciousness is involved. But here's the question: why should observation affect reality? If the universe were purely physical, just atoms and energy following fixed laws, then measurement shouldn't change anything. And yet, at the deepest level of reality, it does. This suggests something profound. 1. Consciousness plays a fundamental role in shaping reality. 2. If observation is necessary for reality to take shape, then an ultimate observer, beyond space and time, must exist. The second option is groundbreaking. If reality depends on an observer at the quantum level, that means a conscious mind must be behind reality itself. And what do we call a conscious, non-physical mind that sustains all of existence? God. At level 33, we now see that the very fabric of reality responds to consciousness, suggesting that a supreme observer, a divine mind, may be the foundation of existence itself. Let's level up. At level 34, we examine one of the most debated events in history, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Billions of people believe that nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus of Nazareth, a man publicly executed by the Roman Empire, rose from the dead. But here's the question. Did it really happen? And if so, what does it mean? Let's look at the historical facts that even secular scholars agree on. Jesus was crucified and buried. No serious historian denies this. It's backed by multiple sources, including Roman records. His tomb was found empty. Even his enemies admitted the body was missing. Hundreds of people claimed to have seen him alive after his death. These weren't just followers. Skeptics like Paul and Jesus' own brother James also became believers after experiencing what they said was the risen Christ. The disciples went from cowards to martyrs. Before the resurrection, they ran in fear. Afterward, they were willing to die rather than deny what they had seen. So, we have two possibilities. 1. The disciples were all deceived or lying about the resurrection. 2. The resurrection actually happened. But here's the problem with the first option. Why would they die for something they knew was a lie? People may die for false beliefs, but they don't willingly suffer brutal executions for something they made up. The second option makes more sense. Jesus really did rise from the dead. And if that's true, it means God exists, and He has revealed Himself in history. At level 34, we now see that the resurrection isn't just a religious story. It's one of the strongest pieces of evidence that God has acted in the world. Let's level up. At level 35, we explore something that every person, at some point in life, has faced: the existential crisis. There comes a moment when we ask ourselves, why am I here? Does my life have meaning? Is there a greater purpose, or is everything just random? These aren't just abstract questions. They shape how we live, how we love, and how we find peace in a world filled with uncertainty. But here's the problem. If the universe is just an accident, if we are nothing more than molecules bouncing around in a cold, indifferent cosmos, then life has no real meaning beyond what we invent for ourselves. Love, beauty, purpose, all of it would be illusions, mere survival mechanisms. And yet, we can't live that way. Even the most committed atheists still act as if love matters, as if justice is real, as if their lives have a purpose beyond just existing for a few decades and disappearing forever. So, we have two possibilities. 1. Life is ultimately meaningless, and humans just pretend otherwise. 2. Life has real meaning because it was designed with purpose by a creator. The second option makes more sense. If we long for meaning, maybe it's because we were made for it. Just like hunger points to the reality of food, maybe our deep desire for purpose points to the reality of a God who created us with a purpose in mind. At level 35, we now see that the very fact that we crave meaning and purpose suggests that life is not an accident. There is a creator who gives it meaning. Let's level up. At level 36, we explore something that sets us apart from every other living creature: human exceptionalism. Humans are different. We don't just survive, we seek meaning. We don't just communicate, we write poetry, create music, and tell stories. We don't just adapt to our environment, we change it, shape it, build civilizations, and explore the universe. But why? If we are just another species in the animal kingdom, why do we have the unique ability to reason, to create, and to seek truth? Why do we have self-awareness, imagination, and the ability to reflect on the nature of existence itself? We have two possibilities. 1. Human intelligence, creativity, and morality are just evolutionary accidents, random byproducts of survival. 2. Human intelligence, creativity, and morality exist because we were designed in the image of something greater. The second option makes more sense. No other species writes symphonies, builds telescopes to study the stars, or lays down its life for a moral cause. The fact that we are so different from every other life form suggests that we were made for something more. Religious traditions have long claimed that humans are not just advanced animals. We are created in the image of God. Our ability to reason, to love, to seek meaning, and to create beauty are reflections of a divine nature. At level 36, we now see that the uniqueness of humanity points to something greater than evolution alone. It points to a creator who made us with a special purpose. Let's level up. At level 37, we explore something even more mysterious than the fine-tuning of the universe, the fine-tuning of consciousness itself. We often talk about how the universe is precisely calibrated for life, how the laws of physics must be just right for stars, planets, and biology to exist. But there's an even greater mystery. Why does the universe allow for conscious beings, beings like us, who can think, feel, and experience reality? Consciousness isn't just about survival. Humans don't just react to their environment. We reflect on it. We wonder about the stars. We question our existence. We search for meaning. But here's the problem. There is no scientific explanation for how non-conscious matter suddenly woke up. The fundamental particles of the universe, atoms, quarks, electrons, have no awareness, no thoughts, no emotions. Yet somehow, these unconscious particles combine to create beings that can think, reason, and ask, why am I here? So we have two possibilities. One, consciousness is just a strange, unexplained accident of physics. Two, consciousness was designed, woven into reality by an intelligent creator. The second option makes far more sense. If the universe is fine-tuned for life, and life is fine-tuned for consciousness, then consciousness itself must have a source beyond matter. And what do we call a source of consciousness that is greater than our own? God. At level 37, we now see that our very ability to think, to wonder, and to experience reality is no accident. It is a sign that consciousness itself comes from a greater mind. Let's level up. At level 38, we explore something that even the greatest scientists find mysterious: the beauty of mathematics. Mathematics isn't just a tool for solving problems. It has an elegance and symmetry that seems almost designed. Think about it. Euler's identity combines 5 of the most fundamental numbers in math, pi, e, I, 1, and 0, in a single, stunningly simple equation. The Fibonacci sequence appears everywhere in nature, from the spirals of galaxies to the arrangement of petals on a flower. Einstein's equations of relativity describe the fabric of space-time with near-perfect simplicity. But here's the question. Why should reality be describable in such elegant mathematical terms? If the universe were just a random collection of particles, we'd expect messy, chaotic rules, not equations of breathtaking simplicity and beauty. So, we have two possibilities. 1. Mathematical beauty is just a strange accident. Our minds happen to find the universe elegant. 2. The universe is mathematically beautiful because it was designed by a rational mind. The second option makes more sense. When we find beauty in human design, whether in art, music, or architecture, we instinctively recognize that a mind was behind it. So why wouldn't that same logic apply to the entire universe? At level 38, we now see that the deep mathematical harmony of reality isn't just useful, it's a signature of intelligence, pointing to a creator who wrote the very equations of existence. Let's level up. At level 39, we explore one of the most powerful and time-tested arguments for God's existence, St. Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways, strengthened through modal logic. Aquinas proposed 5 logical proofs for the existence of God. But what happens when we take these arguments and express them in modal logic, the branch of philosophy that deals with necessity and possibility? The result is a highly rigorous, formalized proof that makes the case for God's necessary existence. Let's break them down. 1. The argument from motion, first mover argument. Premise 1. Everything in motion is moved by something else. Premise 2. An infinite regress of movers is impossible. Conclusion, therefore, there must be a first mover which is itself unmoved. This we call God. In modal logic, if motion exists in every possible world, then a necessary first mover must exist in all possible worlds, meaning God is not just possible, but necessary. 2. The argument from causality, first cause argument. Premise 1. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2. A causal chain cannot be infinite. Conclusion. there must be an uncaused first cause, necessary in all possible worlds. In modal logic, if causality is real in every possible world, then a necessary uncaused being must exist in all possible worlds. 3. The argument from contingency. Premise. 1. Contingent things exist, things that could have failed to exist. Premise 2. A world of only contingent things would require an infinite regress, which is impossible. Conclusion. A necessary being must exist in all possible worlds. God. Modal logic strengthens this argument. If a necessary being is even possible, it must exist in all possible worlds. 4. The argument from degrees of perfection. Premise 1. We observe degrees of goodness, truth, and beauty in the world. Premise 2. There must be a maximum standard by which these degrees are measured. Conclusion. A perfect being must exist as the ultimate source of all perfections. God. In modal logic, if a maximally great being exists in any possible world, it must exist in all possible worlds. 5. The argument from teleology, design. Premise 1. Non-intelligent things act toward purposes. Premise 2. Purposeful action requires a directing intelligence. Conclusion. There must be an ultimate designer of reality, God. Since order and purpose are observed in all possible worlds, a necessary intelligence must exist to direct them in all possible worlds. Final conclusion, the modal proof. Aquinas' 5 ways, when placed into modal logic, reveal that if God is even possible, then God must necessarily exist in all possible worlds, including ours. At level 39, we now see that Aquinas' arguments, combined with the rigor of modal logic, lead us to a highly structured logical case for God's existence. Let's level up. At level 40, we introduce a powerful tool used in logic, science, and philosophy, Bayesian probability. Bayes' theorem is a mathematical formula that helps us determine how likely something is, given the available evidence. It's used in fields like artificial intelligence, medicine, and even law enforcement. But here's the big question. Can we use Bayesian probability to assess the likelihood of God's existence? Yes. And when we do, the results are shocking. Bayes' theorem works by comparing 2 competing explanations. 1. Theism, the belief that an all-powerful, all-knowing God exists. 2. Naturalism, the belief that the universe exists without any divine cause. Now, let's input the key evidence we have. Fine-tuning of the universe. The probability of the physical constants allowing life by chance is astronomically low. Objective morality. The existence of moral truths is far more expected under theism than naturalism. Consciousness. The emergence of rational thought is extremely unlikely under pure materialism. Religious experiences. Billions of people throughout history have reported encountering God or the supernatural. Each of these greatly increases the probability of God's existence. On the other hand, what evidence makes God unlikely? The problem of evil and suffering, the assumption that the universe could be self-existent. When we weigh all the factors mathematically, the probability of God's existence vastly outweighs the probability of a purely naturalistic universe. At level 40, we now see that when we apply probability theory rationally, belief in God is not just reasonable, it's the most likely explanation for reality. Let's level up. At level 41, we explore one of the most profound and technical arguments for God, the mathematical necessity of divine infinity. Mathematics reveals something fascinating. The concept of infinity is unavoidable in reality. In set theory, calculus, and number theory, we encounter different types of infinity. Countable infinity, like the set of natural numbers 1, 2, 3. Uncountable infinity, like the infinite points between 0 and 1. Absolute infinity, which transcends all mathematical sets. But here's the mystery. Infinity itself cannot be reduced to physical reality. Physics cannot produce an actual infinite series of events. Time itself must have a beginning. Matter and energy cannot be actually infinite. All observed systems decay over time. Yet mathematics operates with infinities as real, necessary truths. So, we have two possibilities. 1. Infinity is just an abstract human concept with no true existence. 2. Infinity reflects something real, something beyond space and time. The second option makes more sense. If infinity is fundamental to the structure of reality, it must be grounded in something that is itself infinite, something that transcends physical limitations. And what do we call a being that is eternal, boundless, and infinite by nature? God. At level 41, we now see that mathematics itself points toward an infinite, transcendent foundation of reality, one that aligns perfectly with the concept of a divine being. Let's level up. At level 42, we dive into one of the strangest and most revolutionary discoveries in modern physics: quantum mechanics and non-locality. Quantum mechanics reveals a universe that is deeply interconnected in ways that defy classical physics. One of the most shocking discoveries is quantum entanglement, where two particles, even light years apart, can instantaneously affect each other. But here's the mystery. Information is traveling faster than light, without any physical connection. There is no local cause, yet the particles behave as if they are part of a unified system. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, because it seems to violate everything we know about space and time. This phenomenon, non-locality, suggests that reality is not merely physical interactions within space and time. Instead, the entire universe seems to be governed by an underlying, non-local order, one that connects everything instantaneously. So, we have two possibilities. 1. The universe is a purely physical system, and we just haven't yet figured out how non-locality works. 2. The universe is fundamentally connected beyond space and time, suggesting a transcendent, non-material mind that sustains reality. The second option makes more sense. If reality behaves as if it is governed by a unified intelligence that operates beyond space and time, then the simplest explanation is that there is a transcendent mind, the ultimate observer that holds everything together. And what do we call a non-local, transcendent intelligence that sustains all of reality? God. At level 42, we now see that quantum mechanics isn't just weird. It may point directly to a universe upheld by a transcendent mind, one that exists beyond space, time, and physical laws. Let's level up. At level 43, we explore one of the most profound arguments for God's existence, Descartes' ontological argument. René Descartes, one of the greatest minds in philosophy, argued that the very idea of God's existence proves that he must exist. But how? Let's break it down. We have a concept of God as a supremely perfect being, one that lacks nothing. Existence is a perfection. A being that lacks existence would not be truly perfect. Therefore, if a supremely perfect being exists even as a possibility, it must exist in reality, because true perfection includes existence itself. In simpler terms, a triangle must have three sides. It's in its very definition. In the same way, God's nature includes existence itself. A non-existent God would be a contradiction. So, we have two possibilities. 1. The concept of a perfect being is flawed, meaning such a being cannot exist. 2. The concept of a perfect being is valid, meaning that being, God, must necessarily exist. If God is even possible, he must exist. His existence is not just hypothetical, it is logically required. At level 43, we now see that Descartes' argument forces us to rethink existence itself. If a maximally perfect being is even conceivable, then it must exist in reality. Let's level up. At level 44, we turn to one of the most powerful and refined philosophical systems, Neo-Aristotelian metaphysics. Aristotle's philosophy was built on the distinction between potentiality and actuality. Potentiality refers to what something could be. Actuality refers to what something is. A seed has the potential to become a tree, but it only becomes actual through an external cause: water, soil, sunlight. Everything in nature moves from potential to actual through some cause outside itself. But here's the issue. If everything in existence is moving from potential to actual, then something must be fully actual, pure actuality, with no potential left to fulfill. If such a thing did not exist, then all of reality would be an endless chain of contingent causes, with no ultimate foundation. But such an infinite regress is impossible. There must be a first cause that is pure actuality, requiring no external cause. And what do we call a being that is fully actual, uncaused, and necessary? God. Neo-Aristotelian metaphysics refines this further. The essence of a thing, what it is, must be distinct from its existence, that it is. In all things except one, essence and existence are separate. But a necessary being must be one in which essence and existence are identical, a being that is existence itself. At level 44, we now see that Neo-Aristotelian metaphysics leads to an inescapable conclusion. Reality requires a necessary being, pure actuality, in which existence and essence are one, and that being is God. Let's level up. At level 45, we explore one of the most debated ideas in modern cosmology, the multiverse. The multiverse theory suggests that our universe is just one of countless others, each with different physical laws. This is often proposed as an alternative to the fine-tuning argument. Instead of our universe being designed, we just happen to live in one of the few that allow life. But here's the problem. The multiverse itself must be fine-tuned. If infinite universes exist, there must be a mechanism that produces them, but that mechanism must also obey precise mathematical laws. The probability issue doesn't go away. Even if infinite universes exist, that doesn't explain why any universe, let alone a life-permitting one, should exist at all. Where do the laws of the multiverse come from? If a deeper law generates universes, then that law itself must be explained. So, we have two possibilities. 1. The multiverse exists without explanation, with precise mathematical laws appearing out of nowhere. 2. The multiverse, or the universe itself, is fine-tuned by an intelligent mind. The second option makes far more sense. If fine-tuning requires an explanation, then the multiverse doesn't remove the need for design. It simply pushes it back a step. At level 45, we now see that the very idea of a multiverse still leads us to the necessity of a designer, because the existence of multiple universes must still be explained. Let's level up. At level 46, we explore one of the most mind-bending discoveries in modern physics, the holographic principle and its implications for the existence of God. Imagine reality as a hologram, where everything we see and experience is actually encoded on a distant, two-dimensional surface. This isn't science fiction. This is cutting-edge theoretical physics. The holographic principle suggests that the information describing our three-dimensional universe is stored on a two-dimensional boundary, like a cosmic blueprint. Everything we experience, matter, space, even time, could be projections from this deeper level of reality. This means our universe may function more like a vast informational system rather than a purely physical structure. But here's the real mystery. If our universe is a projection of deeper information, where does that information come from? We have two possibilities. 1. The universe's informational structure is just a brute fact. It exists without purpose or source. 2. The universe is fundamentally informational because it was programmed by an intelligence, one that exists beyond space and time. The second option makes far more sense. If information is the foundation of reality, it must originate from a mind capable of encoding and sustaining it. And what do we call an eternal intelligence that generates and upholds the fabric of reality? God. At level 46, we now see that the latest discoveries in physics point to a reality deeper than matter itself, a structured informational cosmos that aligns perfectly with the concept of a divine creator. Let's level up. At level 47, we approach one of the greatest mysteries in modern science, the unification problem in physics. For over a century, physicists have searched for a single, fundamental theory that unites all the forces of nature, a theory of everything. Right now, we have two dominant frameworks. 1. General relativity, which explains gravity and the structure of space-time. 2. Quantum mechanics, which governs the behavior of particles at the smallest scales. Each of these theories is astonishingly successful, but they are fundamentally incompatible. Gravity and quantum mechanics refuse to fit together. This raises a profound question. If the universe is truly one unified reality, Why can't we find a single equation that describes everything? There are two possibilities. One, physics is just incomplete. We haven't yet discovered the right mathematical framework. Two, the deep structure of reality points to an intelligence beyond physical laws, a mind that upholds the unity of existence. The second option makes more sense. The universe behaves as if it follows a single, elegant set of principles, but human science struggles to express it. This suggests that a transcendent intelligence, one that exists beyond space, time, and physical laws, is responsible for the order we observe. And what do we call an eternal, rational mind that holds all of reality together? God. At level 47, we now see that the deep mysteries of physics don't point away from God. They point directly to a transcendent creator, the ultimate unifier of all reality. Let's level up. At level 48, we explore one of the deepest mysteries of physics, quantum ergodicity, and the necessity of a universal observer. In classical physics, ergodicity describes systems that, over time, explore all possible states evenly. In an ergodic system, if you wait long enough, every possible configuration will eventually be reached. But quantum mechanics disrupts this picture entirely. Quantum systems do not evolve like classical systems. Instead, they exist in a state of superposition until they are measured. The act of observation itself determines the final state. Here's the mystery. Why does the universe follow an ordered, structured path, instead of constantly shifting through all possible states? What selects the real world from the vast space of quantum possibilities? How does reality know which state to take when no human is there to observe it? This is where the necessity of a universal observer comes in. We have two possibilities. One, the universe has no real state until observed, meaning it would require countless independent observers across time and space to maintain its coherence. Two, there exists a single, all-encompassing observer, one that ensures reality follows a continuous and intelligible structure. The second option makes far more sense. If quantum reality is fundamentally dependent on observation, then the most logical conclusion is that an ultimate observer, one that transcends time and space, is continuously sustaining reality. And what do we call an all-knowing, ever-present intelligence that sustains the fabric of reality itself? God. At level 48, we now see that the structure of quantum mechanics itself suggests that reality is upheld by a necessary, universal observer, one that ensures the continuity of existence. Let's level up. At level 49, we confront one of the deepest questions in mathematics and philosophy. Why do axioms exist, and what do they reveal about ultimate reality? Axioms are fundamental truths, statements that are so self-evident that they require no proof. For example, the law of non-contradiction. A statement cannot be both true and false at the same time. The law of identity. A thing is itself and not something else. A equals A. Mathematical axioms, such as 1 + 1 = 2, which is universally true. But here's the mystery. Axioms are necessary truths. They apply everywhere, at all times. They are not physical things, yet they govern all of reality. They cannot be created or destroyed. They simply exist. So, we have two possibilities. One, axioms exist without explanation. They are just brute facts. Two, axioms exist because they are grounded in something beyond space and time, a necessary mind that upholds truth. The second option makes more sense. If these fundamental truths exist independently of the physical world, then they must be grounded in something eternal and unchanging, something that is truth itself. And what do we call a necessary, eternal source of truth? God. At level 49, we now see that axiomatic truths are not random. They point to an absolute necessary foundation of existence. And that foundation is what we call God. Let's level up. At level 50, we arrive at the deepest and most rigorous argument for God's existence, ultimate ontological grounding via model theory. Model theory is a branch of mathematical logic that explores how formal systems relate to the structures that interpret them. It reveals something profound. Every system of logic, mathematics, and language requires an external framework to give it meaning. Formal systems cannot define themselves from within. They must be grounded in something outside themselves. If there is no ultimate foundation, then all logical and mathematical truths would be floating in an undefined void without any real basis. But here's the key question. What ultimately grounds all truth, logic, and reality itself? We have two possibilities. 1. There is no ultimate grounding. Truth and logic just exist as brute facts without deeper explanation. 2. There is a necessarily existing mind that serves as the absolute foundation for all logical structures. The second option makes far more sense. If logical and mathematical truths are real, universal, and necessary, then they must be grounded in an ultimate reality that is itself necessary, unchanging, and self-existent. And what do we call an eternal, self-existent, necessary mind that upholds all truth, all reason, and all reality? God. At level 50, we now see that the very framework of existence itself requires an ultimate grounding, one that transcends all possible logical and mathematical models. This necessary foundation is what we call God. This is the final level. Thank you for listening.